Hello and welcome to the PhD Life Raft podcast. I'm Emma Brzezinski and today I am talking to the marvellous Kate Mukungu. We are talking about undertaking a PhD when your plate is already full. So working and doing the PhD and parenting and doing all the things all at once. And Kate shares her experience and some top tips that she has discovered out of that journey. So I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Kate.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
I am so well, thank you. As I say, your CV is so epic, and I am so excited to talk to you. The brilliant thing of this podcast is I get to talk to amazing people, and when I saw your stuff, I was like, "Wow, this is so cool!" So I can't wait to get into this, and all that you do, because you are a wonder. So before we get into the kind of particular topic that we were going to talk about today, which is doing a PhD when you've already got too many things on your plate, which I love. I always start by asking people to tell us a little bit about themselves. So can you tell us a bit about you?
Okay. I am now 50. So I turned 50 in the year of finishing my doctorate. Yes. I hoped it would be the other way around, but that's okay. I, at the time of starting my doctorate, was working in as a chief exec of a charity in the northeast of England, and started my doctorate not to pursue a career in academia, but more to kind of reflect on lots of practice issues and kind of contexts that I'd come across as a person and as a practitioner.
Yes.
But then I found it took me into academia, and I became a lecturer for a while, but actually ceased doing that by the time I finished my doctorate and found my way back into being a chief exec of a different northeast of England charity by the time I graduated. So I think I have quite a bit of diverse experience and quite a hunger for encountering different experiences and different people and learning from that, and which I guess is what takes folk into this kind of endeavor in the first place. If you didn't have a kind of a rampant curiosity, then a PhD's a questionable choice, I think.
Oh, I love that
that's
term.
a little
Rampant curiosity. Yes to that. Yes to that.
Yeah. I've kind of used the doctorate and find myself going in a circle, but in a circle that I'm very happy about. Sometimes people describe a circle as if it's negative because you've kind of come back to something, but actually the trip around the circle was the point for me, rather than necessarily needing to end in a completely different place, I think.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love the sense of the PhD as a process and as a process of discovery, because it isn't just something to tick off the list. It is, it's a process and an inquiry and a vehicle for rampant curiosity.
Yes, that indeed.
Amazing. So the PhD is now complete. Amazing. But we wanted to talk about you undertaking that PhD when you already had a very, very full life. And I know there are lots of people listening who are also in that experience and are on the life raft because they feel a little bit like they're drowning sometimes. So to talk to you about how you navigated that, what that was like, and the kind of the highs and lows of that. So take it away. Tell us about that.
I found that in the early stages of the process, it was quite doable. So although I had a busy job and teenage daughters as they were at the time, I finished the process as a grandparent of a 5-year-old, and I did,
Amazing.
yes, I didn't know that was going to be the case when I started. Um, so I find it easy in the early stages
Right.
because of setting out the project and thinking about how to approach doing the research.
Mm.
Where I found the balance a real challenge was at the real writing stage.
Right.
And I found that I had to adopt all manner of strategies just to get through that. And I think that there was two sides to that for me. One was about kind of definitely having to push myself, but secondly, having to forgive myself because I was very productive at the early stages when it came to planning the project out and looking at the method and looking at how I was going to go and interview people and collect my data and all of that. I think a lot of my work skills kicked in,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was a project like many other projects at work. But when I had to sit down with the computer and then kind of grapple with all of this original contribution and achieve the depth of analysis that is sort of a doctoral level and etc. I just found that my pace became really, really slow. And there was a lot of angst and questioning myself. So that's when the whole kind of strategic
Yes.
approach to just getting myself through that was important.
Yes.
And the answer to that, we think the answer to that often is time. And actually, for me, the answer to that was people rather
Right.
than time.
Right.
And finding people that were willing to let themselves be a sounding board for me, but also people that I was very open to reciprocating at that for as well.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so, and those, thankfully, I did a lot of kind of asking the universe for things, and the universe was very kind. And
Oh,
sometimes the universe
mm.
was disinterested, and that was kind of okay because nothing was lost in the process of that. And so, whether it was joining networks, um, online networks of women academics, networks of people doing PhDs, and the online world was a very generous place for me, I
Mm.
found, but the physical world was too. There are people out there who maybe have retired from their academic career who have a real generosity of spirit when it comes to wanting to nurture and support people at the early stages of that whole endeavor. And I was really lucky to kind of cross paths with a few and form connections. So for me, people were the answer, but definitely coming up with a schedule, having my family on board was,
Mm.
you know, without that it would have been impossible. So you know um from partner to siblings to children and then grandchildren, sort of understanding that, oh, it's time to go away into that room and turn the computer on again. But really, people for me are the answer, and they are more precious than time. We think that time is the thing that we're constantly in a battle with, and I I think I realize that that's not necessarily the case, because this is an endeavor, or sorry, this is a challenge about getting to the end. That is what the achievement is getting through the stages. And I did interrupt my studies a few times because there were times when the demands of life were bigger than
Yes.
all else. And, illnesses and sadly bereavements and
Mm.
different things that had happened along the way. So actually, sometimes you can stop the clock. I know that's very difficult for some people in relation to visa implications, etc. But where you can stop the clock, if you like, and say, look, I need to step off here to go deal with life so that I can come back and integrate this project back into my life again. That was useful. So
Mm.
I took a really long time to get to the end, and I was a part-time researcher anyway because of all the other things that I had going on, work and family, etc., and the need to earn throughout the process.
Mm.
So once I kind of told myself that if I decided that I would get to the end, barring any kind of disastrous events that might prevent that, then I was actually going to get to the end, because it was just deciding to have that endurance, if you like.
Oh, I love that. And it is, the PhD is a mindset game, and kind of setting that intention. What strength in that is like, I will finish, we'll get there, we'll get there. Oh, there's so much good stuff in there. I loved what you said, and I'm sure lots of people could relate in terms of these different phases of the PhD, and starting out and feeling like, oh yeah, here we go. This is like work, isn't it? This is this thing. And I think for a lot of people who have come to the PhD with a lot of experience, that sense of setting up the project and that first sort of hunting and gathering phase, setting things up, has a particular rhythm to it, which actually can feel quite familiar. It's like, it's like setting up a work project. Oh yeah, here I go. And then, yeah, like you say, you come to that next stage, like kind of, I call it the messy middle. And the rhythm changes, and people aren't necessarily expecting that, because they thought, oh, well, this is the PhD, the first phase, when they go into that first phase. Oh, this is the PhD. And then, like you say, everything slows down, and you have to go into that ruminative space, which is very different to lots of other stuff that we do. This isn't like work anymore. And as you say, then it's got a different rhythm to the rest of your life. And actually, you have to kind of curate your life a little bit differently around that. I wonder, because you said then at that point about having to set things up for yourself. I wonder if there's anything else to say around that. You talked about people, having that kind of connection with people. And obviously you are a real people person. I can tell that. And in terms of having that input, but anything else that you can remember from that time and managing that change of rhythm?
I think one of the things I'm a little bit cautious about is it's really important that this conversation is encouraging, what I know I wouldn't want to do is sort of present as someone who had it sussed, because I really didn't.
Oh, no.
I really had moments of complete doubt and I'm not sure I can do this. So I think that what I learned was that if I was in the room by myself with just the computer and literally feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, and that moment was, recurred or came in different ways, I don't recall bringing myself out of that moment by just staying in the room and staring at the screen. And I think sometimes we imagine this, that, these kind of academic types that will go away until they figure it out and they'll have their eureka moment. And I guess I imagine that's very dependent on what your project is, and also about your own type as a person. But I never pulled myself out of any of those moments by myself. So that was when, if that isn't working, change it. Little moments where I did find that I thought, oh, I've got a little solution here. Often happen when I would go for a jog.
Right.
And this is going to sound like a totally ridiculous tip, but bear with me. What I found one of the most useful things was I created a little WhatsApp group, but I was the only person in the group. So another academic friend of mine, I made a group with her, and then I immediately threw her out of the group. So that and the group was called Good Research Ideas. So if I was in a moment, if I was jogging, or if I was anywhere, I could just give myself a voice note, and therefore take something out of my head. So and I think that helps when you don't feel time rich as well. It's like you can let yourself swim around in a thought of something and then but capture it in that moment. I
Oh,
used
I
to
love that.
sometimes laugh at myself, because I would be jogging and I'd be giving myself a voice note, but then I would think people will just think I'm talking to someone on the phone. But
There you go.
for those who are old enough to remember or into the humor of Alan Partridge, I did sometimes laugh at myself because I thought I'm doing this kind of, speaking into a dictaphone type of thing that just is a bit cringy, but it really worked. It really worked. And I also made another WhatsApp group for everything else. And that group was called, again, a group of one, that was called Not Research. So, so I had good research and not research. So therefore, and that was also like, remember to get milk, or,
Yes.
pay this bill or pick this child up or whatever. So that kind of little silly thing helped, but it really, it helped me a lot because I know lots of people use really sophisticated apps, and I'm not one of those people, but that was a good little tip.
I don't think that's silly at all. I think it's genius. And I'll tell you for why. Because if you've got WhatsApp on your phone, you're always going to have your phone with you. And
Exactly.
sometimes when you've got other systems, you don't always have it to hand, and you need it for those moments where you're like, oh, there's that idea. And you want to capture it. And as you say, especially if your plate is already full and you're already working and parenting and all the other things that you're doing, you want to capture that golden moment, and whatever
Yeah.
works for you works for you. And I love it. I love a WhatsApp group of one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But the fact that it kind of goes to show what I was saying, though, I couldn't have set that group up by myself.
Yes,
I
yes, yes.
even just needed someone who was on board with the idea, and she was doing the same. My friend Madeline was doing the same at the other side, and so we were, and I also had lots of little genuine groups as
Right,
well
right.
with people that was about exchanging ideas, and sometimes those were groups of people that would meet in person. COVID came increasingly, none of us were meeting in person, but
Mm,
I found that personally a very fruitful time for me, because in the past, where I could probably only meet people who were geographically close to me, all of a sudden I found that I could have those kind of really helpful conversations with people who were everywhere.
mm,
And that was so helpful to me. And it also meant that you could have conversations at unusual times of the day as well, or not
right.
unusual times of the night.
Yes, 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 yes.
Um, yeah, I think the other thing about and I don't know if it's answering your question so much about the rhythm of things, but one of the things that I found really important was to be honest about how I felt and to put
Mm,
words and voice to that in conversation with others, which might have been quite burdensome for people around me. I don't know, but I had to do that in moments of triumph as well as moments of despair, because I think sometimes we will remember to say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or this is too difficult, but also to sort of say, do you know what? I cracked something today.
yes, yes,
I'd
yes,
been
yes.
thinking about that for ages, and now I think I know what that chapter needs to be about, or now I think I know what that piece of information is trying to say. Um, and
Yes.
and to be generous with about that, uh, to other people as well, because we anyone who's been through any difficult process always knows how encouraging it is when you see someone else take a leap forward. It gives you a bit of hope.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I thought, well, actually, I need to kind of shine a light on that as well, and be
Yes.
helpful to other people, because that's part of the deal, whether, and it's not always paying it back, it's paying it forward too. I really believe that. So I think those are the things that get you through. And there's this idea that it's a very lone or a very sole piece of work. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think it is.
No.
I know it's kind of presented as such because your name is on the work at the end, and you wrote it, but no one ever did anything alone. I really,
No.
that is just the truth, and this is no different. So I would encourage people, not if they feel lonely in the process, to to be very clear about the fact that actually you're not meant to be alone, and therefore there's no need to feel lonely. It's just, I think, quite challenging to find your way to get supportive people around you, because I don't think we're necessarily prepped for that extremely well. I think maybe people, because we envisage it as such a solo piece of work, that that's kind of the headspace or the mindset that we bring to it. But increasingly, I find that the more you share the trials and the triumphs with other people, the more manageable the whole thing becomes.
Oh, yes to that. And I love that you were talking about the triumphs too, because it's really important. I think people perhaps kind of go, okay, right, well, I'm going to need people to support me when it's hard. But actually, as you say, what you want is people who totally get where you go, yes, I found that reference. And those are your people that go, hooray for you. I totally know why that's important, and I'm going to celebrate that with you.
Absolutely.
Really, really. I just, those are the people you need. And that's like you say, so having your people that are going to travel with you, and you're going to cheer for them, they're going to cheer for you. You are there for when things are difficult, but you are also there for when things are flying. That's the gorgeous part of it. To see the highs and lows together. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think that the other thing about being busy is there's always and I certainly can relate to this, that I think when anyone who's busy often feels like, okay, this week I did 50 things and I did all of them not very well. And sometimes, you're holding so much and you think, okay, I need to put some things down. And so I've had to have very understanding colleagues at times as well, because, which I possibly felt more moments of guilt about that than anything, because your co-workers don't, they didn't kind of sign up to you filling your life with so much stuff that there were times that you're then turning them to them and saying, I need help with this, or I need to bring my leave forward, or things like that. But again, I think that makes giving voice to things all the more important. And in those situations, I found being reciprocal very important. So it would almost be about saying to people, look, I need to kind of put lots of leave together at once. However, can I help you out at this time when I think it will be useful to you? And so that was really important as well. But taking the break, I took a break twice, and the second time I felt a little bit defeated, just because I was so desperate to get it done. And I thought, if I take a break, then I'm delaying the finish date. But actually, I had to. When you're starting to run on empty, you need to stop. And so I let myself stop, and I'm glad that I did, because the end is no different. However further away it is, the relief is immense when you get to the end, however long that takes. So I think push yourself and forgive yourself are probably two of the big things
gorgeous
that are important.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that sense, because if there are people listening now who are in that place of empty tank, just even putting it on to the table to kind of go, I could take a break. How would that be? Just actually asking that question of yourself, I think can be really useful, because as you say, what can happen then is extreme burnout if you keep going. And then actually taking a pause, stepping back, means that you give yourself a better chance of powering to the end. That's the thing.
And give your mind a chance to think more clearly. That's the other thing, because when you're trying to push through exhaustion as well, it stands to reason that what you're producing is is laced with that exhaustion. You know,
Yes.
it shows in what you put out.
Yes, and it's much harder work. You don't get to enjoy the journey, and you're putting your health at risk, and that's not what we want. That's not what we want. Kate, you're awesome. I knew this would be a good one. And so now then, you've given us so much wisdom and so much to think about. I am just going to ask you, out of all of that, all that you have said, what would be your top tip or top tips?
I think finding your people is so important, but to triumph with as well as to struggle with.
Yes.
And to be and to find good people, you've got to be good people as well.
Yes.
The ones who are maybe the most helpful to you maybe need nothing back from you, but there are other people out there who need you, who need your presence. So give that kind of willingness to just engage with people is so important. I should qualify that, or maybe add a caveat to that and say, if that's how you are as a person, I realize that tip isn't going to work for everyone. But if you are a people person and you know that you interact a lot with people in order to get through most aspects of your life happily, don't think that this thesis has to be done differently, because it doesn't. That's a
I love it. Kate, thank you so much. And all of that good stuff there. I'm just having a moment now, because I'm just thinking of all that you've said and all that went on in that process of your PhD journey, and the losses that you experienced. I'm really sorry to hear about that, but also the triumphs that you had, and that you finished with a bigger family than you started with. I love.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I know that will be helpful to so many people. Thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed the opportunity to chat. I did feel like this was going to be enjoyable, and sure enough it was. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you all for listening.